Hello, scholars. It's me again. So now I want to go over chapter 16. Chapter 16 is about special occasion speeches. There's also a section on distance communication, and there is also a section on small group interactions. So I know that last video was a bit long, like way longer than I expected it to be. So I'm going to try to go through these slides a bit quicker. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Then I want to pull up my slides. And again, this is chapter 16, special occasion speeches. So what is a special occasion speech? Basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a presentation that is delivered during a special occasion. Now, the occasion may be of a professional or personal nature, and the purpose can be to inform, persuade, or entertain. So those are the three major things that we look forward to as public speakers. We're either trying to inform our audience, meaning that we want to educate them, teach them about something, share some knowledge, or we might want to persuade them, which means that we're trying to change or reinforce their attitudes or beliefs about a topic. Or we're going to try to entertain them, which means that we're basically trying to elicit some emotional shift, some change in just the atmosphere and their vibe and what they feel like at that moment. In some instances, particularly for special occasion speeches, we may be trying to do a combination of these. For instance, with an after dinner speech, we are definitely trying to entertain our audience, but we might also be trying to persuade them to give donations toward a charitable cause. So there are instances where there's a combination of goals for our actual special occasion speech. So as I said, some of these speeches are typically associated with professional experiences, whereas others you might experience more often in a personal setting. So we're going to go through some of these. Well, actually, we're going to go through all of these and talk about what is expected during these presentations. So if you're doing a speech of introduction, more than likely you are trying to prepare your audience for a speech by someone else. So this is really common when you work for an organization and they're bringing on a keynote speaker, either for a professional development workshop or sometimes even for sometimes when you're having some type of, the word escapes me, but if we're having a ceremony that we have often and we're bringing in a guest to celebrate maybe a special time of the year, or maybe even if it's for a commencement, usually there's an introduction to the commencement speaker. So basically, as the person who is introducing the speaker, you are going to try to prepare your audience because you want to make a connection with them and let them know what's in it for them to listen to this actual speaker. Additionally, you want to make sure that all of your information is up to date. For instance, if an individual recently had a promotion or a change in title, maybe they used to be a minister and now they're a doctor, or maybe they were the dean of a department, but now they're the vice president of a department, you want to make sure that you are aware of that and that you acknowledge that in the introduction. With an acceptance speech, this is something that you'll typically see, or you have seen several times if you watch television and you've seen award shows. So if you've seen the Emmys or the Golden Globes or the BET Awards or MTV Awards, then you recognize that usually when people get those awards, they do an acceptance speech. And you want to make sure that you're being humble and thankful and that you're not being boastful or braggadocious when you do your acceptance speech. Make sure that you're also being succinct. You're not talking for a long period of time, and that you contextualize the award. Make sure that it's known that your connection with the organization or the utility of this award is recognized in your speech, that you're proud of the award, and that this may be something that sparks continued growth for you as an individual. There are a number of things that you can mention that puts the award into context. All right, an after dinner speech. Typically, as I noted previously, after dinner speeches are meant to be entertaining. You'll also want to focus on the theme, mention whatever the theme of the event is, whether it's a event where you're trying to raise money or it's just an event where you want to just celebrate the end of a semester or the end of a fiscal year and you just want to entertain your audience. Make sure that you're mentioning whatever the occasion is. Also, you don't want to use presentation media most of the times. There are certain occasions where it might be okay to show a short video, very short video, but more than likely, this should not be like a lecture. You should not have PowerPoint presentations for an after dinner speech. Tributes and eulogies are somewhat like commemorative addresses. So you want to commemorate an individual. You want to celebrate them and basically share why they are important to you or to an organization or to a number of individuals. Now, tributes and eulogies can both be done while a person is still living. Usually when we hear eulogy, we're talking about someone who is deceased, but for the sake of this class, if you wanted to eulogize someone who is still alive and you've maybe thought about all the things that you would say if they were deceased, then it might be a little unorthodox, but it's okay. It's weird because my aunt is still alive and she's already written her obituary. So some people think that's weird. But if you have the notion that, oh, I want to eulogize or commemorate this individual, even though they're still alive, then that's perfectly fine. Typically, you want to provide some type of inspiration, encourage people who have lost someone. But even if it's a speech that's about someone who's still alive, typically you use the life of that individual to inspire others to, do amazing things and to impact the lives of other individuals the way the person who's being commemorated has impacted lives. A speech of nomination is basically when you are nominating someone for an award or for a position. So when you do this, you want to make sure that you're well informed about the individual. What are their credentials? Why should they be nominated? What would the role of this person be once they are in this position? Make sure you get the wording right because oftentimes individuals have particular policies and procedures for properly nominating individuals. So you want to make sure that you're aware of that and that you present your nomination in a way that's appropriate in nature. A public testimony is exactly what it sounds like, a testimony that is provided sometimes for legislation. For instance, if you're trying to get a law passed or you're trying to petition the government to make some type of change or to recognize some particular population that needs additional assistance, then you will provide a public testimony. Whenever you do this, you want to make sure that you're usually objective in nature. You want to be able to generalize the information to a broader audience so that we understand the impact of whatever you're discussing. Also, you want to be as original as possible, formulate some type of personal connection, but also use keywords and phrases that will allow your audience to remember exactly what your main points were and basically remember your speech and actually have a desire to consider your information well after you've done your presentation. So I put toast and roast on the same slide. They do have some similarities, but when we talk about a roast, we're talking about instances where individuals have been called on to basically pick fun at someone. Oftentimes it's during an event where a person is being celebrated, but as a part of that celebration, they just, use jokes that may be a little ironic. Sometimes they tell short stories about a time when this person did something that was particularly funny, or they may just make up random little things. They often compare the person to a comical figure. And the thing that's important to note about roasting is that while the information or the jokes may be a bit scathing, they're never mean spirited. Oftentimes, people invite individuals to roast them. They've already picked you because maybe you have had a long friendship, or you interacted with them for a long period of time, so you know their personality and you know their boundaries and what things might make them truly upset versus those things that they'll just laugh at. So it's really something that's fun, and it's never mean spirited. It's never meant to cause real emotional harm to anyone. A toast keeps in mind that this is definitely a celebration, and it's really for the sake of lifting a glass to an individual who has done something or who is doing something worth recognizing. This is really common at wedding ceremonies or wedding receptions, at least. Also at birthday gatherings, sometimes after events where money has been raised, but it's really common for weddings. When you do this, make sure that your remarks are short and upbeat. I see that I made a mistake. I have remarks are short and upbeat. I think that should be short and upbeat. Also, you make sure that you stand while the person is sitting during the toast. Refer to them by name, so you don't want to say this guy, even though some people might jokingly say this guy. You want to say whoever the person's name is. Mention your relationship. I have known Jack as a friend for 15 years, or this has been my best friend since kindergarten, or this is my sister and also my best friend. Also, you want to mention the occasion. This is their wedding, this is their birthday gathering. We're so happy to be here to celebrate them on their 10th anniversary, whatever the occasion may be. And then at the last moment, right as you are concluding, which is an excellent indicator that you are concluding your speech, you'll raise your glass. So you do that right at the end so that everyone else knows to raise their glass. So you don't want to raise your glass too early, and then everyone has their glass in the air and they're waiting on you to wrap it up and you're still talking. So those are a few rules that are outlined in the text. An elevator speech. Typically, an elevator speech is a short, very short presentation that you'll give to an individual whom you're trying to make a connection with. Whenever you're trying to network with someone, you'll more than likely highlight who you are and what your goals are. And this can be presented in a professional environment, or it may be presented in a casual conversation that you're having with a stranger, if there's a chance that you can make some type of connection with them and basically benefit them, or maybe they can point you in the direction of someone who can benefit you. But when you're doing your elevator pitch, you want it to be so short that you could give this pitch while riding an elevator from the top to the bottom floor. You want to keep it simple, be as engaging as possible. You don't want to seem like you lack personality. You want to show your personality, who you are. Avoid negatives. Don't mention that you lost your job 3 years ago and you haven't been able to find work since then. That's not very telling of why I should try to make a connection with you, unless I feel sorry for you. But make sure that you're mentioning what your goals are. What do you want to accomplish? What do you hope to do for the individual that you may be talking to, or any target population, target audience that you want to connect with? Highlight some of the outcomes that you've had in the past. What are some of the things you've done in the past that have been beneficial with previous employers or other organizations, or other clients if you're an entrepreneur? Practice on strangers. It's okay if you want to get a little practice in, and you haven't had many opportunities to, give your elevator pitch at actual professional engagements, and you want to just make sure that you're doing a good job at selling yourself, it's okay to say hi to a stranger that you meet out and about, and really share with them who you are, where you're from, and what you're trying to do. And you could basically end by saying, do you know anyone that might be able to assist me in this area? Communicate, don't sell. You're really trying to build a relationship. You're not trying to go from person to person selling yourself, passing out your resume and saying, hey, I need a job, or hey, I'm trying to get some type of financial assistance, or hey, I'm trying to get a scholarship. How can you make this happen for me? And a great resource that I've decided to share with you guys on presenting elevator pitches. Well, she tries to change the name from an elevator pitch to a snap pitch, but it's essentially the same thing. And you can take bits and pieces from what the book talks about and what she talks about and create a elevator pitch that is ideal for you. Alrighty, distance speaking. So distance speaking is the planned and structured presentation of ideas transmitted from one physical location to other locations by means of information and communication technology. So basically, this tool that I'm using currently, I'm recording a Zoom session, a Zoom web conferencing session. Now, when we do our public speaking presentations, at least our last two, you guys will use Zoom. And basically, we will be doing what's called distance speaking. So we will be meeting in this online space to communicate with one another across a great distance. I live in North Carolina, so whenever whenever I am communicating with you guys, I am going to be communicating across the great distance. So you can do that in a number of ways. Some people do it within organizations. So if I worked for corporate America and I worked at a big firm and I was the supervisor or the boss, the head person, and I wanted to communicate with everyone in the organization, I might create a video and send an internal communication. This is basically this exchange of messages within a organization. If I do that, that's still considered distance speaking, and you follow the rules of distance speaking as outlined in the text in terms of being prepared and having a conversational tone and making sure that whatever you're discussing is organized and understood by your audience members. All of those rules are still followed, whether it's an internal communication or if it's a great distance like this communication that we're having right now, whereas I am 14 hours away from Mississippi. Video conference. This is also considered a video conference. It's an online meeting that allows people at two or more locations to communicate interactively by means of simultaneous video and audio streaming. So whenever we use Zoom to do our speeches where we have sessions and 8 or more of us will be logged in at one time, that will be considered video conferencing. Graphic online presentation is a graphic-based talk delivered to an audience by computer and the internet where the speaker is heard but does not appear on screen. So there are resources that allow instructors or individuals in general to place their voice on top of PowerPoint presentations. So more than likely, if you've taken other online classes, you may have had an instructor who did PowerPoints where they recorded audio on top of that. That would be an example of graphic online presentation. The last type of distance speaking is a telephone meeting, also known as a teleconference, which is a phone conversation with two or more participants. Now, we did something very similar to this years ago when they developed three-way calling, and we would talk with groups of friends all the time. It was a very informal conference, but it was a teleconference all the same. These days, they have systems that allow multiple people from various areas to call in through a system that puts everyone into one teleconference. And if I'm not mistaken, they even have it now where On your cell phone, you can just call multiple people. You don't have to go through a third party. You can just add multiple people onto your phone call, and all of those would be examples of telephone meetings. Okay, I think our last slide is about presenting in small groups. And presenting in small groups is an example of what's known as small group interpersonal communication. So, interpersonal communication is basically a relational exchange between two or more individuals. If there were only two individuals, you would call that dyadic interpersonal communication. With more than two individuals, 3 to maybe 9, 12, it just depends on your ability to exchange information equally within their relationship. Those in those scenarios or situations are known as small group communication. And in essence, all of these are a collection of individuals who interact with one another to solve problems, sometimes make a decision, or to achieve another common goal, which basically creates this relationship, this level of interdependence or perception of mutual need is what creates a relationship and causes small group interactions to be interpersonal communication. Now, one of these is known as a panel discussion, and a panel discussion is a public exchange of ideas giving experts and audience members the chance to discuss a particular topic. Now, usually, if it is a panel discussion, there will be a moderator or a facilitator who asks questions and basically keeps the conversation going. With a roundtable discussion, this is an academic discussion where experts are given equal opportunity to discuss a topic without an audience. And it typically, it says may, but oftentimes the purpose of a roundtable discussion is to address a community challenge or an organizational challenge. So usually when we have a roundtable discussion, we have people who are knowledgeable about an organization or a community concern, and they come together to strategize ways in which they might overcome these issues or practices that they might initiate to try to make things better, either within their organization or within their community. So a symposium is a conference during which participants take turns presenting on a topic. Oh, that was a distraction. So a symposium is a conference during which participants take turns presenting on a topic. Now, these symposiums occur very often, especially in academia. You may actually hear of a symposium at our institution on some occasions where you have individuals who come in and there is typically an overarching topic, sometimes around holidays like Valentine's Day. They may have a time related topic, such as maybe they're going to talk about love, spreading love around Valentine's Day, or if there is a national holiday coming around. Oh, also in February, when they have Black History Month, you'll hear symposiums. You'll hear of symposiums where individuals are presenting on trends in African American culture, historical events that people may not be aware of in the Black community. You'll hear of symposiums where individuals are presenting on these various topics, and essentially those would be symposiums. Oral reports are presentations of research findings conducted by an individual or group. Now, the presentation may be done by an individual or a group, as well as the research. The research could have been conducted by one person, or there may have been multiple researchers. But essentially, with the oral report, your goal is to report the findings of the information that you have gathered, whatever you have learned through this experimentation or through this research is what you are presenting in your oral report. The last one is forum, and a forum is basically a question and answer session that follows a formal group presentation. Now, this is what the book suggests, but I would like to add that sometimes there may not have been a formal group presentation. There may have been just a keynote speaker, or there may have been, maybe I don't want to call them a keynote speaker, but there may have been one person that did a presentation, and after the presentation, depending on what the topic may have been, we might open up a forum so that people from the audience can talk about whatever the topic is, and it does not have to have been a group presentation for there to be a forum. So, as always, as stated earlier, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, I know I really rushed through that one, but I just don't want to have really long PowerPoints or really long videos, and then you guys get halfway through and you stop because you just can't keep up. So if you have any questions about anything that was discussed, if you have comments or concerns, I'm not really used to doing the whole video thing, so the videos may be crap. And if you just want me to answer some of the questions because there was a bit of confusion from the videos, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email. All of those are acceptable means of communication. I hope that you guys have some appreciation for the information that's being shared in these videos, and I hope that you have an outstanding week. I look forward to our future interactions. Have a great week.